Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Mason. I have the pleasure of chairing the Citizens Bond Oversight Advisory Board. Welcome to our meeting. Notice of this meeting was properly posted on June 24th. I think we're to the minutes now, Cassie? Roll call. Let's see if we have anyone here.
Steve
Yeah.
Cooper,
Here.
Heather Gardner, Javier Nira,
Present.
Sandino Thompson,
Present.
Mike Mize,
Here.
Joanne Davis, Steve Mason.
Yes. Okay, welcome, everybody. Our first agenda item is the approval of the minutes of April 23rd of this year.
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion from the committee? Any discussion from the public? May we vote? Okay, now we're to recurring items. Pastor Forsyth, is there a particular spot you'd like to talk on this agenda? You know, okay, you want to go first or last, or what's your pleasure, sir? Okay. We're glad you're here.
I am Reverend Dr. Roy Forsyth. I'm a retired plastic surgeon, an ordained minister in the Catholic Church, and a volunteer at the Oklahoma County Jail for the last 16 years. I have a team of 3 men and 3 women that go into the jail and see inmates. And over those years, we have probably ministered to 24,000 individual inmates on one-on-one encounters face to face, provided them with Bibles, Bible studies, daily devotionals, things to give them encouragement and to let them know that they're cared for and loved. In the past, inmates were able to request on a kiosk within the pod to see the Catholic chaplain or a Protestant chaplain. I don't know if that's still functioning. And then I would be provided with a list of who needed to be pulled, and a guard would go get them out and bring them to us, and then return them afterwards. And we would spend the day there doing that. I would say that 95% of the individuals that I see are not Catholic, and I'm not there to try to make Catholics out of the people I see. It's to encourage them to a relationship with Jesus Christ. This past Sunday's paper looked like an interview with HOK, and the interview read, or part of it, we meet with every department, all the staff, find out what they have now, what they don't have, and should look at what the future could bring and plan accordingly, said Bradley, adding HOK's design accommodates the county's need to be able to take care of the future. No one has contacted me, and I'm concerned that there will be no place for me in this new jail. Right now, we have a converted storeroom that accommodates 3 cubicles and 3 chaplains and then 3 inmates. Pretty cramped space. It would be nice if we had something better than that. So how do I get to visit with somebody from HOK?
So you showed up for the right day.
Okay.
Part of HOK's presentation today is going to be speaking to how this new design is going to be one of the top 5 in the country, and maybe it's more user-friendly. So during their presentation, I bet they will speak to these other rooms that are available, and hopefully that will answer your question. And if not, when they get in speaking, we'll take some more public comment.
Okay.
So I'm glad you're here for that discussion.
And then I'd like to make a comment and step on some toes, probably.
Okay.
I think that the design of the exterior of the jail has a tens of $1,000s roof over the entry drive that is unnecessary. So with the cost of prisons going up, there's no reason to do something like that other than because somebody thought it looked pretty. But that much glass, 15 feet of glass, to be cleaned by somebody, is going to have power equipment to elevate them up. Is that going to be risky for those individuals? It's not a good plan. I don't think it's cost effective. So thank you for your time. And now, who do I get to talk to?
We're going to hear their presentation, 2 agenda items from now. And in their presentation, hopefully we'll address those 2 questions.
Okay.
And if not, there's more public comment at the end and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Does that work for you? Thank you, Reverend Forsythe. Also, we have 2 new members I wanted to recognize, Heather Gardner and Steve Cooper. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here. And I admire you guys. When we all signed up, this process was a little quieter. So it's really great you showed up now. Thank you very much. Under recurring items, we have a presentation from our county engineer, Stacy Trumbo.
Good afternoon. Just tell you what we've been doing lately and then maybe go back a little bit for the 2 new members. You are a recommending body to the Board of County Commissioners. So whatever items you take up and vote on will go up to them as a recommendation, and then they're the final say, of course. Information you'll get from me. I work with HOK and Flintco, who are both present here today. And I can make sure that they talk to you directly if you want to do that as well. So any information that this board needs, you'll get it. The latest thing we did is we purchased the land at 1901 Grand. It's about 70 acres, not too far from here. We did that on June 10th. We've already closed on that land. We own it. And we have filed a lawsuit against the city challenging their zoning ruling on that land. It was filed a week ago. They've got about 3 weeks left to answer. I don't know what their answer will be. If you want to read the case, it's CV 2024-1659. I think it was a pretty good brief. It's solid. It's got all the facts in it. I'd be hard pressed to think that we would lose that case, but what do I know?
Hey, Stacy, just to clarify, I mean, that's the sort of sovereignty action.
Yeah, it's doing 2 things. It's challenging their ruling as being arbitrary. There's 6 boxes that you have to check in that particular case for special use. We checked all 6 boxes, not by a little bit, but by a lot. And if you saw the mayor's comments, the mayor's going to be our number 1 witness in that case. And then it also goes to sovereignty. So there's 2 angles there. What I'm doing on the land right now, though, trying to keep things moving forward, I've got a group that's, surveying for any underground utilities that we want to get rid of that we maybe didn't know were there. Got some final geotech that's going to be done. We did preliminary geotech just so we know basically where the foundations would go. They're pretty shallow, 10 to 12 feet. We know where groundwater is, that sort of thing. But now we've got to have a better spacing for the actual design. And then the company is going to start the flood studies. There is a floodplain that goes through there on the west side. We'll have to do some probably detention. So we'll have to make some plans for that, or how we're going to handle our runoff. So we're moving forward with some things in parallel with the lawsuit. What HOK is doing, they're in the design development. You guys have already approved the schematic designs, made that recommendation. The commissioners followed your recommendation. They approved the schematic designs. And now we're in design development, which gets pretty detailed. I think earlier this week, I guess yesterday, we discussed how long the mattresses on the beds were going to be. 80 inches, if you're interested. You got to be pretty precise because these are prefabricated cells, and they got to be down to the millimeter, if you will. There can't be any room for error, so everything is very much to that level of detail. I don't really see this board getting into that level of detail unless you just really want to. But we will have to find, what your role is going to be in design development. What kind of stuff do you want to see? What do you want to hear? What do you want to talk about? What kind of recommendations do you want to make? And then Flintco, as these designs progress and changes are made, they continue to reprice it. I don't have a new number for you today, but I can tell you they're working on it in the background. And probably by the next meeting, we might have a new number for you. And The old number was, I think, at 2,328 or 2,348 beds in detention, 60 beds in the behavioral health. We were at about 677 million on one and 48 on the other. It was kind of our base. And the county commissioners backed off the beds of the detention a little bit. They're at 1,800 beds now, which dropped us to 610. And we're still where we were with the behavioral health. And maybe some new numbers in about a month for you guys to look at and see and make recommendations on.
I have a question.
Stacy.
Sorry. Do I need to push this? My question is that we met last and you had talked about getting a third party estimate done as well to compare. Has that been done and is that something we can review?
I don't have anything for you, but HOK does have a third party estimator that works in this community, and they can have the numbers ran in parallel just so you can have a comparison. And you can ask them that question when they get up here if they want to
Thank
do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, remember what the thing I was going to ask you about. The behavioral health center. It's not. I mean, I think from what I understand, sort of last update because we hadn't met in a couple of months, but it's moving. It's not moving parallel track. Like it's moving sort of.
Yeah, it's ahead because we
Right.
lose that money sooner than we would lose money any otherwise.
Well, and if I recall the facts correctly, from a zoning and all those kind of standpoints, like it's a clearer path. Like today, there's nothing in front of you slowing that project down, right? To clarify.
That's my belief, but I haven't consulted all the attorneys.
Okay.
So yeah, we are moving forward on that. We're a little bit further in design development on the behavioral health than we are on the main jail. And our intention is to break ground on that in January, start turning dirt. Hopefully these lawsuits will be over and there won't be anything at all standing in our way, but we're moving forward as if that was the case. Any other questions?
You want to touch on a grand jury petition that was filed?
Yeah, there was a grand jury petition filed today. The Del City folks are bringing it against one of our county commissioners. Don't know a lot of detail about it.
That's in process.
It's just another hurdle that happens at courthouses.
Other questions for Stacy from this committee? Comments from the public? Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding the election of vice chairman. Cassie put this on the agenda. What do you want us to do?
I apologize. So per the resolution for this board, it does need to elect a new vice chair since the previous vice chair did recuse themselves.
Thank you. And that was Mr. Stevens who moved to Missouri, I think. Okay, thoughts on a vice chairman?
I nominate Mike Mize.
Second that nomination.
You got to be quick, Mike.
You have any thoughts, Mike? You okay?
Yeah, I'd be okay with it. I wanted to nominate Mr. Thomas. I was not fast.
Is there any discussion from the board? Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Mize.
Thank you, Mike. Agenda item number.
Thank you all for that vote of confidence. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So agenda item 4 is a presentation from HOK, which will help cover some of Reverend Forsyth's questions. And I think as you start your presentation for our two new committee members, can you give us the 30-second overview of HOK detention facilities, please?
Thank you. I'm Jeff Bradley with HOK, National Director for the company. HOK is a large firm. We have multiple offices around the world, 20 plus in the United States. Headquarters St. Louis, been around over 50 years. The Justice Group's been doing justice-oriented facilities for around 50 years. In the last 10 years in the United States, if you took the 20 largest jails, we've been commissioned to design 16 out of those 20. So about 80% of the largest jails in the United States over the last 10 years. People have come to us to do those for them. We're pretty proud of that. And they're pretty wide ranging in not just sizes, from Oklahoma County being flat and widespread with no elevators to downtown Brooklyn, New York to 23 stories and multiple elevators. We do a little bit of everything. It just depends on what the environment is. But one of the things that we've incorporated, and we're literally leading the trend and change on the United States, is incorporating better diversion and mental health programs into the facilities, both separate like your BCC and also internally. You're going to have some things here at Oklahoma County that other counties around the nation just do not have, that address people that are incarcerated who, the people in the BCC are non-incarcerated, but the people who will be in the detention facility who are incarcerated with charges, who have mental health issues, you have 378 beds that focus on those. 112 of them are intensive for people who are in crisis that have severe mental health issues, either both a danger to others and or to themselves. And then you have the balance of those 280 or so beds that we call transitional and step down housing, to where they can start out in maximum security, move their way to medium, then to lower risk, and then transition out. We've been in a discussion with the district attorney and some other people here in the county and the judge, Judge Ogden and others, and they have interest in also taking people as they move through now, since we've developed this jail process, to transition people out and get them better prepared for upon release and having successful releases, that they could also entertain going into the BCC as well for additional counseling. And the thing that's unique is the BCC is a 24/7, 365. So it's more intensive. We've also incorporated into your intake booking facility, and Kurt touch on it a little bit. We have an area into the intake and booking area, which we have a diversion folks that are going to emphasize, specialize, and review everybody who comes in intake to see who can or cannot be diverted and never enter the facility. We actually have desk and office space for those people built into your booking area. You won't find that in others. In addition to that, you have on the release side over there, we have community services space that we've actually incorporated and designed into it to prepare people for release and put them in touch with the other community services that you have in the community that are existing right now. That's not in your normal, neither of those are in your normal intake and booking facility. You're going to have some very trend-setting, unique things that'll improve not just the people who work there, the staff who have to deal with the challenging environment they're in, but also the people who are incarcerated. While they're in there, their environments are dramatically improved. And then also upon release, better preparing them for more successful release and reducing the recidivism and the number of your so-called frequent flyers that you have. And Reverend will also address you and your issues too. You'll, I think, be happy to hear about the plans that we have. Kurt's going to, I don't want to talk about it now until he pulls up the drawings and he can point them out to you. Oh, sure. Be happy to. Thank you. So, is that any more than that, Steve? Is that?
Any questions for Jeff before we go to
Not me.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm Kurt Pardee, principal on the project for HOK. So we have a small presentation to go over with you today to explain kind of where we're at in the project and the types of things we've been working on. So you go to the next slide. I've got it. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. So this is a overview of our current design for the project. This has been, issued the last several weeks. Really, we have the large jail fronting off of Grand Avenue. We have the Behavioral Health Center over to the left, which fronts off of 22nd Street. They have different entrances into the site, and that's purposefully so that people that are being brought to the facility by intake, by law enforcement officers as they come into the intake center, if they're being diverted to the behavioral care center, they will go directly to the behavioral care center without ever going into the jail. So that is how that's set up. The so continuing, you know, what we've really been working on and focusing on is a lot of meetings. You know, we've started working with all of your departmental staff and the people that work at the facility, having in-depth meetings about the different spaces in the building. Jeff touched on the intake area. The intake is a lot of different things. It's intake, diversion. Again, as I mentioned, that's where people are diverted from the jail directly to the behavioral care center. If it's decided after a medical and mental health examination that they're going to stay in this facility, they'll go into the booking area, and that's where they are booked into the facility. At that point, they'll be taken to housing and assigned to a specific housing unit, classified whether they're minimum, medium, maximum security level. That area also touches on transfer, so inmates that are going to be coming down to court or being transferred out to the DOC after their stay at the county facility. So there's a space there that will focus on that. And then finally, release. We are incorporating release areas into the facility design right now. We're keeping it flexible until it's decided exactly how that process will work. But we have space for people to be held until they're released. And that process is we're working very closely with the people at the jail facility to determine how they want to do that and how the entire county wants that process to happen. We've also been talking about the housing. We have many different types of housing in this facility. We have minimum security dormitories. We have medium security multi-bunk cells. We have double bunk cells. We have single bunk cells, segregation cells. So we've been working on all those different types of housing and different types of cells, areas within the facility. We've also been focusing on the behavioral health incarcerated housing. So those that come to the facility and are diverted to the behavioral care center are never booked into the jail. So they go directly to the BCC. However, there are a lot of people that are going to come into the jail that also have mental health issues. So we have behavioral health incarcerated housing specifically for them. And as Jeff mentioned, we have some of those that are going to be acute, require acute management, a lot of mental health care, behavioral health care, and we have others that don't need that much. So they just are, again, kind of a step down situation from acute to normal. So we have those transition housing areas as well. We've also been talking a lot about cell construction. You know, a big project like this, there are a lot of options. We're looking at precast cells. We've been looking at steel cells, comparing the different prices, and Flintco has been putting numbers together for that. We want to make sure we get the best, best price, the best product, something that's going to last a long time for the county. So we're looking at those options. The inmate program services refers to the gentleman's question. We have breakout spaces in each housing unit for multi-purpose visitation spaces for people to come in and have programs, do some either either some education or just meeting with people, counseling with people. We also have some separate areas at the front of the facility that are educational spaces that are larger, that you could get 30 individuals in, that you could hold chapel, you could hold many things in those kinds of spaces. Training for individuals that, could focus on a trade before they're released. A lot of different things can happen with that space, but there are spaces for that here. We also have visitation areas. We have attorney visitation spaces that are going to be off the main public lobby. We also have attorney video visitation spaces. So A lot of inmates will be able to stay in their housing units and not have to be transported to the front of the facility for attorney visitation. And then also we have family video visitation units in the front lobby, so that family members coming to visit with inmates will be able to do that as well. Um, we we also have family reunification rooms, so spaces that specifically for mothers or fathers that have young children that might be held in the facility, a lower level of incarceration. They can come here and they can meet with their family members in these family reunification spaces. And those could be, again, be used for many types of different things. Just because of their location, they'll have access from an inmate on one side and from family or visitation on another side. There's also a full medical clinic. We are talking about incorporating treatment care, wound care, dialysis, dental, all these things into this facility so that the inmates that are housed here will have very good care while they're housed here. Many inmates have poor health care when they're outside. And so when they come to you in this facility, and if they're incorporated into the jail, it's an opportunity for them to see doctors and get cared for in ways that they haven't been able to before. So a medical clinic is available to them while they're housed here. In addition to that, there will be some inmates that get sick or that maybe break a bone or have a cut, and so there will be an infirmary for those to be housed in the infirmary area. So we have 30 beds of infirmary in that area, in the incarcerated area of the jail. Um, at the public side of the facility, there are a lot of things happening. We have 2 courtrooms in this facility. So not only is this a jail, it's also a courthouse. So we have public access to the lobby. There are waiting areas, and we also have some shell space for future courtrooms as well. The administrative areas for the CEO and those that run the jail are at the front of the facility. We have training areas for detention officer training and officer training in general. So those that are coming and new members of the sheriff's office or that are going to work at this facility will be trained in the new training environment. We then have the BCC, the Behavioral Care Center. This is its own building. It's being designed to meet all of the state's medical FGI requirements so that individuals that are housed there can actually receive Medicare payments while they're there. So the county doesn't have to pay for them staying in their facility. They will be reimbursed for those costs. So it's sized for that. We have 3 areas of 20 beds. So we have 2 for male and 1 for female. So there's 40 beds for male and 20 beds for female. And this is the behavioral care center part of the facility for the diversion. And it's something you don't see at a lot of counties. I think it's very innovative, and it's going to provide you a way to care for those that don't have to go to the jail, but that are brought here by law enforcement. So we're trying to help the county reduce the overall number of inmates that are in this building. Finally, all the support spaces that support the individuals that are housed here: food service, laundry, warehouse, maintenance, facilities, people. There's a lot of, it's like a small city. People are held here, all day, every day of the year. There's always going to be someone in these facilities. So having people that can maintain it, provide food, provide laundry is really important. So we've been having a lot of discussions with those individuals that run those spaces for you now, so we can design this to meet your needs well into the future. From a scheduling standpoint, these are just some upcoming deadlines we've been talking about.
Let's pause it. Do we have any questions kind of about the concept and the layout and designs he just went through before you go to schedule?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, thank you. We are scheduling some upcoming tours to go see different types of cells. So we have a couple on stage right now, a couple of facilities where things are being built with precast concrete cells. So we're going to go see what these look like, make sure that it's something that the county is, really wants to go this direction before we go that direction. So there are two facilities that have agreed to have us come and tour their new facilities, and these are under construction. So we'll be able to see how they're built. What's the best way to build them. What are some things? What are some lessons learned we can learn from that. So I think it'll be very valuable for us to do those tours, and I think the county's figuring out who from the county's side can go for that. That's probably going to be early July. And then some of the milestones. Now, these are starting to get close. The BCC design development is scheduled for August 23rd completion. And then working with Flintco throughout this process, the plan is to have the ARPA package, GMP, finalized before the end of the year. So, that's only 6 months away at this point, and that is going very quickly, that time frame. So we're focusing on the ARPA funded package, which is really the BCC, the Behavioral Care Center, along with some site work and maybe some infrastructure work. So we're figuring that out. We're working on that and working closely with the entire team to figure out how that's going to happen. As we all know, it's very important that we don't miss that deadline. The site and foundation package construction likely then would start in January. That's the plan. That's been the plan for quite some time. The behavioral care center building construction would likely start in March of 2025. And it needs to be completed in construction by the end of 2026. So that's why it's got to get started fairly soon. It's a quick build, and Flintco is working on that, of course. And then the jail itself, we're looking at jail construction starting likely June of next year, and then going to August of 2027. So that's kind of those are the timeframes that we're trying to keep with and make happen. And there's a lot of decisions on projects of this size that we have to have made quickly so that we can maintain this schedule. So that's what we're working on. So we're having face-to-face meetings every 3 weeks. We're having weekly meetings every week, either via Teams or here. It just depends on who's in town and when we're in town. So a lot of meetings are happening. A lot of decisions are being made. We're asking a lot of questions. It's really important that we get as much input from everybody, from the client, from the contractor, and ourselves with our experience to make sure that we get the answers that are going to help us keep on the schedule. Okay. All right. Absolutely.
Quick question on that. I didn't see a CD milestone on the BCC. What are we basing the GMP on, or is there a CD milestone that's just not shown?
It's just not shown. CDs will be, I believe, at 95% in December, and then GMP will be based on that.
Thank you.
And if Flinco's, if I've misspoken, just let me know.
Well, then that's a pretty tight turnaround is Flintco comfortable turning that around in 2 weeks?
They're
GMP.
Well, they're working with it. It's not just a package, that they haven't seen. I think that's the benefit of having the CMAR involved right now is they are giving us input into everything as we're moving forward. So as we're talking about the different cell types, they're the ones that are calling and setting up the meetings and talking with the vendors. And so, their input that they get from those people along the way is really what it's about. So it's not going to be just giving them a package and then developing a GMP at the end.
Your syllabus says that you'll have CD1 by September 30th, so it's not going to be
Right.
start to
We're
finish,
giving
right?
them different looks at it as well. So like through the DD phase, we have a DD1, DD2, DD3, and then CDs will be something similar. We have to stay on those milestones so that they get the information they need to feel comfortable with the GMP. for sure. Okay. For those of you that are new to the board, this is an overall plan of the facility. I know it's pretty small here because it's a large building and I'm showing the entire site. Towards the bottom in the lower portion, that is the kind of the purple, that's the behavioral care center. As I mentioned earlier, it comes off of 22nd Street, has its own parking for the public and for staff. They'll all enter through the front entrance of that building. Just above that in orange is the intake center. So everyone that comes to this facility via a squad car will go into the intake center where they will be analyzed, medical and mental health examinations given, and it'll be determined at that point if they're coming to the BCC or if they're coming into the jail itself. If they're coming into the jail, then they kind of make their way up into the rest of the facility. The pink area there toward in the center of the large plan, that's the medical area, the clinical space. We have medical and mental health counseling. So we have both medical and behavioral health care within that facility. And then it's also where the infirmary is. And then surrounding that pink are the specific behavioral health housing areas. So that's where you have your acute behavioral health care. You also have your step down transitional care in those areas for those that have behavioral health issues. There will be behavioral health people in the general population as well, in the general population housing that are receiving medications, but they've been there. That happens after they've been there a while, after they've been on medications. They're more normalized, so they move into the general population housing. And then the rest of those brownish colors are all your minimum security, medium security, and maximum security spaces. And then way over on the right, the yellow, that is the public entry off of Grand Avenue. That's where your courtrooms will be. Those are on the second floor of that space. We'll have a large lobby because there are a lot of people coming into this facility, and they'll be disseminated. Some will be coming to the courtrooms. Some will be coming to visit administration. Some will be coming to visit people that are in the jail facility. So a lot going on there. Below that is an orange area. That is the area where we have the special program classroom spaces. So for inmates that need or are going to get the opportunity to talk with counseling or educational programs, that's where that will happen. And then above that is the green, and that is where the training and the administrative offices are. And they were directly off of the secured parking area. Things that we're working with, and we've been working and talking with Flintco about all these items since we issued the design development 2 package. I'm sorry, the DD1 package, and these are design refinements that continue to go on. It's a process. We develop a design, then we begin to see how much that design costs. Then we begin to look at how do we bring it to within a budget that is affordable for the county. So these are the kinds of things we've been talking about with the contractor, reducing corridor widths. Our wider corridors will be 12-foot wide so we can get laundry carts, food carts, inmates, officers, all going down there at the same time in the main corridors. And then the secondary corridors between different housing units, for instance, where there's much less traffic, those will be 8-foot wide corridors, more standard to what you'd see in a hospital in those situations. Reduction of the building height when we issued the SD package, which is what Flintco's first cost estimate was based on. There were some assumptions made, obviously, about the heights of the walls and things of that nature. So we've been refining those issues and talking about reducing the heights of those walls so that we can help reduce costs, not only by reducing square footage, but also by reducing the overall height of the building and the building perimeter and the envelope. Also looking at the finishes on the exterior, reducing terracotta panels, reducing the exterior finishes of the building where we can, so that it still looks like looks like a jail, but a jail that has court rooms in it, and so we're looking at those finishes again, kind of trying to control costs as we move forward. Then we have a list of alternates we're going to talk about in a minute. Developing these alternates, reducing square footages, so reducing the number of beds. Again, the cost that was put out there by Flintco was on the 2,300 beds. We're now looking at options to reduce that, so that's what that's about. We've also been looking at the mechanical penthouses. As you may imagine, a single-story facility this large has a large roof, a lot of HVAC. What we are doing at this point is we are putting, we dropped the mechanical penthouses into the building, putting them on mezzanine space so that we clean up the roof. We're getting feedback from Flintco. It's less expensive to do it that way, and I think it works really well for this facility. So we've been looking and designing towards that. And I mentioned reducing the number of beds. So this diagram on the right. The diagram on the left is the SD1 package issue. That is the full 2,350 beds that we had in the facility. And then on the right is where we're reducing. So we're looking at reducing 488 beds of general housing up there on the top, reducing 112 beds of the transitional behavioral health beds, and then reducing the BCC to 60 beds, and then reducing from 4 courtrooms to 2. So those are all elements that we're looking at turning into alternates. So as we move forward on this project, as we get a better assessment of the costs of this building, we can make decisions about what makes sense to take out or leave in. But those give us those parameters to be able to do that. This is just a simple diagram showing the number of beds and how it's changing. So your detention beds, we're looking at about 1,432. And then for the behavioral health beds, we're at 336 for a total of 1,768. That's the change in the bed count. Just a couple last things. This is one of the images you probably have seen in the paper or in the interviews that have been done. This is the front entrance of the building. We have a large lobby. There's a lot going on in that lobby for all the things that are going to happen inside this facility. A lot of different people, a lot of different functions coming together. So that's the front entrance. This is the view from the staff parking lot. So this is the staff entrance to the right. So staff training and administrative staff would be parking in the secured lot and then coming into this entrance. And then this is the entrance for the behavioral care center, separate, completely separate from the jail. It's important to note, and we get asked this a lot, general public cannot drop someone off here. This is not a facility, a behavioral care center that a family could come and drop an individual off. The only people that come here are being brought in here through squad cars to the intake center and then being diverted. It's a diversion facility, not a public health facility. It's just an important thing to remember. And so this entrance is for people leaving, getting taken elsewhere, maybe being reassigned to a community center somewhere or some other type of behavioral health care. That's all I have.
Any visitors coming and going from that interior where they would all?
Yes, sir, there are. There can be visitors. Yes.
Yeah, the visitors that would actually be coming there mostly would be staff related that are coming in to help and do service and such. Well, these people are in the intensive treatment for 3 day, 7 day, 14, 21, 28 day. Typically, they don't receive any visitors at all for that. And Reverend, you also talked about the entrance to the building and such. And I did want to address that too. One of the big things is that we've heard loud and clear from the community is that people don't want to see a jail. Del City doesn't want one nearby. They don't want to drive by one that looks like one. So that's why it doesn't look like one. But that's pretty, it's kind of become an HOK standard around the country. We had one recently in San Mateo, California, when the photographer went to go take the pictures of it. He called, he said, "Oh, I'm at the address, where's the jail?" And we said, "You're parked right in front of it." And he said, "Well, it looks like a library." And so we try and make where jails don't look like jails anymore. We can. There's some places in West Texas and other places that they just want little tilt-up concrete walls, and that's it, and it's done. Uh, we are trying to completely change and reform. You know, it's a sort of justice reform of making these places that aren't horrible on the inside for everybody and horrible on the outside for everybody. We're bringing a lot more natural light in. That's why you see more glasses there. It's an extremely stressful environment. And there, as you know better than anybody, in the amount of time you've spent in them, sometimes people are used to what they're used to. But the stress level involved, the people, especially when you're not just in jail, but the family members who come, the kids who come, and the people who go to court, that's why you have these courtyards that you see in here, and that's why you have the glass that's in here. We're doing clear story windows on the sides of hallways to bring more natural light in. We actually have drop areas for bringing light in the corridors, so people. Some of these corridors are 800, 900 feet long. There's a mile worth of corridors in this entire building. You can't tell looking at this, but it's substantial. And I want to also kind of give Flintco a pat on the back and some credit too. They were asked to price this when we weren't even done with schematic design, and then your cost estimates on a building like this, when you're not even in schematic design, that's really difficult to do. So they had to, of course, make some assumptions because it was actually very early schematic. So it's not for the public, they aren't aware, but that's no much more than almost a napkin sketch. And they had to come back and give as accurate as a price quote as they could. So now as the team's working, we've had 137 people touch this project now, but before it went into DDs. It's a pretty deep bench with a lot of talent, but they're all putting efforts into it to try and fine tune it and save on costs, because that is really important. Concrete's really expensive, steel's really expensive. For a mile of corridor, we did kind of a preliminary guesstimate. For every foot wide or width on a corridor for an entire mile, you're talking about $5 million throughout the entire complex. So you start shaving some things off, and it's little things can make big differences down the road. But you know that it's not fair for a lot of people. Would I say to put pressure on Flinco for what the price came out, and or necessarily for us it came out? That's the early stages. This is what the facility needs to run, operate, and now we go through the process of fine tuning. And that's what you happen when you finish your SDs and you get into your DDs and you finalize things with your department heads and the operational things that are important in chapel type areas. And Kurt addressed the classrooms up front. They're pretty large actually, and those areas are actually made with the intention of you or others to be able to use them as chapels, and also in the housing units themselves, if operationally the facility decides they want to do this, we made multi-purpose rooms, so each individual housing unit can actually have services given in them as well.
Light in the building,
Yes.
exercise areas.
Oh, great question. We can't zoom in on that right now, can we? A good question. The Reverend asked about natural light and exercise areas. Every single housing unit has its own individual exercise area with a complete skylight over the top. And we take that entire wall into the housing day room area, and it's all glass. So there's natural light all day, every day into there. And again, each one has its own dedicated exercise area in addition to the multi-purpose rooms that they have, and also the medical room that they have for doing the distribution of meds every day. So there's a lot of little extras that are thrown in here. The natural light photographs and imaging and things that you see from our housing units are really substantial. There's been some, I think, some that have been published here in town, and maybe next time, if you want, we can bring some of those and give you some other examples to see what you're doing. But we've completely moved the needle nationally as far as making a more normal environment, not just for the inmates, but also for the staff. 'cause it's a pretty tough place to work, as you know. And, so- Where we at? Yeah, he asked about how many square feet. It's about 700,000 right now. Yeah. We have some drawings we can send to you.
Well,
Since,
and
yeah.
Farouk shared some, so, we need a permit to start in January. We need to win a lawsuit
That's,
to get a permit
I
and,
think that question's out of his purview.
But, yeah,
We'll bring Stacy back on that topic.
Yeah.
Let's finish with Jeff, and then we'll go to that.
thank you.
Other questions from HOK? Brother Forsyth, did we answer your two questions to your satisfaction? Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from the public? Great, great presentation, guys. Did you have any other questions for HOK? Okay, let's go to your questions for Stacy, please.
Yes, we do need to win a lawsuit. And that's underway. The only permit that I intend to get is from the state fire marshal. We are sovereign over the city. So that's, permits aren't gonna be a problem, I don't think. Okay, there you go. Yeah. So, yeah, we are tracking that. We do have money in the budget for the state fire marshal's work, so.
Other questions, Steve? Heather, did you have some questions about cost?
I think my only questions are surrounding cost and where and how are we going to fund it? Are these modifications going to bring us in budget? Where are we on budget? I know that that's pending and you're working on that. So, like I said, we had a meeting, went through everything with HOK.
I'm losing quorum. Do I need anything else done? Do I still have quorum? Okay. We got a guest quorum in the back. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so just, those are just questions that, it's hard to see past those questions when we hear about design. It's hard to see past those questions when we hear about schedule or lawsuits and things like that, because at the end of the day, are we gonna actually be able to fund it? That's my question.
Well, at the 1,800 bed number in the detention right now, we do not have enough money to fund that. Some of the things that happened after they ran that bond issue, the cost just spiked crazy. We had some federal charge to show you. The cost basically just doubled and left us in a bad situation. We're working with the Chamber of Commerce right now. Javier's on the chamber, so we're trying to get them to maybe run another sales tax for us. I don't know that whether they will or they won't, but that effort's underway. And this board right here will probably take a bigger role in that, I would think, going forward. If we do not get a sales tax, and maybe we're looking at public-private partnerships, that sort of thing. They're out there. The trick there is how do you pay them back? I guess worst case scenario, if we're going to build in the budget that we have, it's going to be fewer beds than the 1,800 the board's trying to get right now. So we got a lot of work to do in the budget area.
Yeah, so on the jail side is for the available budget for the jail, is can you build the core and is there a first phase that can be built that has any kind of substantive meaning to solving the problem and that could be added on?
We
to,
believe
or have you
we do believe so that
like
we
drawn
can,
a circle around what we can build for our budget and
we believe we can build a good core with all the services and some beds on the site that we have. If I have to switch sites, there's a cost to that, and that probably wipes out being able to build beds.
well, we assume we stay here for now.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in seeing on the big plan a shaded area that current funding would buy. And would, assuming all the site issues work out and we get no more money, could we build that core piece kind of on the schedule?
I think with the current 260 million we have, which is now 220 after we hired an architect and bought some land, we could build about 600 beds today. And that's the budget that was presented a bit ago. Am I close?
I think you're in the ballpark.
close.
But those are the kind of things we'll bring to this board in the future. I'd like to hear that, glad to hear what you want to see. Because we're not going to dictate your agenda to you. You're going to tell us what you want to see. That's what we're going to bring you.
I think just seeing where we are now, which sounds like there's pricing pending and that will be more refined, and they've made changes since that original budget, so I anticipate that comes down quite a bit. So seeing where we are now, what do we have available and what could we actually build, and will it be enough to make the transfer?
I'm excited to see that same thing, and I really believe that at the next meeting, July 23rd or so, that's our goal, is to bring you that information. One of your packages is July 13th, right? They finish another package July 13th. That gives like 10 days to do some repricing. That's plenty. Oh, yeah, see.
Okay, other questions from the board or the public for HOK or Stacy? All right, I think we're done with item 4 then. Is there any citizen participation? Is there any board comments? Mrs. Stephen, have the board comments we can talk about OU football, kind of whatever we want. Whatever you want to talk about, you can talk about, I think. Go Thunder. Any new business? And then I need a motion to adjourn, Cassie. Have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second, is there any discussion? Thanks, everyone.
We are adjourned.
That sort of answer your pricing questions?